Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today, rather than Dead by Daylight. I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV lately, and especially I'm absolutely in love with the Triple Triad game in it. So I would actually like to just do a little video about Triple Triad and what it is in Final Fantasy XIV. But firstly, Triple Triad is a minigame involved in the Final Fantasy universe dating all the way back to 1999 with the release of Final Fantasy VIII. Back then, it was a minigame involved with certain side quests such as the Queen of Cards and the Poo Poo Alien, and it entailed playing a card game against NPCs to build a collection and win one-of-a-kind cards. These would include regular enemies, bosses, guardian forces, and named characters as the usable cards. There was a different variant of the game called Tetramaster, which featured in Final Fantasy IX, albeit with a different rule set and style of play. Fast forward to the present day, and Triple Triad is a feature involved in Final Fantasy XIV, running the same rules as the original game from Final Fantasy VIII, just with different cards being used. So, how do I begin with Triple Triad? Well, firstly, you'll want to head to Aldar and go to approximately 9.6, 9.0 in the Steppes of Nald area. There you'll find an NPC called Well-Heeled Youth, who will begin the It Could Happen to You questline, which takes you to the Gold Saucer. It's worth noting you have to be at least level 15 in order to complete this quest. At the Gold Saucer, progress through until you can talk to the Triple Triad Master in the Gold Saucer, located at approximately 4.17.4, and complete the Triple Triad Trial Quest. That's a tongue twister. Completing this will award you with 5 cards from which you can begin your deck collection with. You can collect cards through various methods, mainly through defeating NPCs in games, which give the chance to drop specific cards for each NPC. Along with this, you can also gain cards through dungeon and trial drops, and also by buying them from various NPC merchants with differing currencies. Now, with the rules of the game, the standard rules of the game simply consist of any card already on the board is considered a defender, whilst any cards being played onto the board would be considered an attacker, and this is used on a 3x3 grid board. If an attacker's number that is facing a defender is higher than their corresponding number, you will then flip that card to your colour. The aim of the game is to have more cards of your colour than your opponent. You cannot see any cards your opponent has in their hand outside of a couple of special rules that can be applied. Fairly simple in concept. However, from game to game you might find new rules applied which can drastically alter the gameplay and strategy involved in winning. The rules you can run into include the following. All open. Both players are able to see their opponent's hand. Free open. 3 cards are randomly visible from your opponent's hand. You do not know which cards your opponent is able to see. Sudden death. In the event of a draw at the end of the game, a rematch is immediately played. The cards you have in your hand will match the ones you had control over at the end of the previous game. Random. Your entire 5-card deck will be chosen at random from your collection. Order. The order in which you play cards will match the order in which they are listed in your hand. Chaos. The order in which you play cards from your hand is randomly selected. Reverse. Rather than the strength of a card going from A is strongest to 1 is weakest, it instead goes from 1 is strongest to A is weakest. Fallen Ace. An A-sided card will be capturable by a 1. This also means in the event of a combo with the reverse rules, 1 is then capturable by A. Ascension. Some cards have factions such as Scion, Primal, Guardian, and Beastman. Ascension means for each card played from a faction, all other cards get a +1 boost to each side. Descension. Same rule in reverse. Each card played from a faction will weaken each side with a -1 deficit. Swap. 1 card is randomly selected from each player's hand and swapped with the other player for the match. Draft. Instead of playing with your normal hand, you will be given 3 different selections of 3 to make up your 5-card deck. Same. If an attacker is placed onto the board and 2 of their numbers mirror 2 other cards they are facing, they will flip both cards to their colour. Plus. Similar to the same rule, however, the attacker, rather than mirroring the numbers they face, must have 2 sides that add up to the same value, which will then flip both cards to their colour. It's also important to note that in the case of Same and Plus, a combo rule is applied where cards flipped via this method are then treated as new attacker cards placed on the board, which will then take any cards they are matched on each side. So, how do we build a deck? The rules of deck building are fairly straightforward. You may have up to 5 cards in a deck with some limitations. Cards will have a star rating assigned to them, going from 1 star up to 5 stars. You may have a maximum of 2 cards that are rated 4 stars or higher, with a further limit of a single 5-star rated card allowed. In theory, you could have 2 different 4-star cards in your deck, but typically you would be looking for a 5-star card and a 4-star card, while rounding out the deck with 3 stars when you acquire them. While different variations of decks work, probably the safest option for people to learn the game would be using this system, with the 3 stars being the typical meta corner 8/8 cards like these here. Now, probably one of the biggest things with cards is the fact that there are server-wide card tournaments held every second week. These tournaments are held with rotating rules with specific prizes for placing in a top 3 and top 20 respectively. The tournament's rules and prizes are all predetermined and rotate on the same schedule all year round. The tournaments are the following. The Spinner's Pool tournament runs on a free open and swap rule set, with the reward for placing in the top 3 being the Cecil Harvey card. The Rowena's Cup Classic runs on a double roulette rule, which means that the rules are completely random every single game for 2 different rules. The reward you get for placing in the top 3 for this tournament is the Tidus card. The Orendurai Memorial Cup runs on the order and same rules, with the reward then being the Firion card. And finally, the Mandeville Tournament of Champions runs on the All Open and Plus rule set, with the reward for top 3 being the Lightning card. Just to highlight them a bit more, as I do believe that these rules are the things that catch a lot of people out, the Same and Plus rule are likely 2 of the most frustrating rules you will come across when playing Triple Triad. One turn it looks like you are going for an easy win, and next thing you know your opponent has somehow flipped every card on the board. The rules work in a similar fashion, with firstly we'll look at the same rule more closely. When you place a card on the board, it will have a look at all adjacent cards to the one you placed. If there are 2 or more instances of your card's number matching the number of the card it is facing in the same direction, the same rule is applied. This will flip any cards affected by the same rule to your color. Additionally, all of those cards will be treated as newly placed cards and will then take any cards they face that they are higher than. This is called the combo rule, which applies in addition to same. Likewise, any cards flipped by combo are also treated as newly placed cards and will then continue to be applied. The plus rule operates in the same manner as the same rule, except rather than needing the individual numbers to match those being faced, at least 2 sides need to add up to the same number. Essentially, this provides a lot more options for use than the same rule does, but also means a lot more RNG is in play based on what cards are being selected. This will actually be found a lot with people that do use the 8/8 meta cards, as there is a lot of plays that can be made simply by using different sides of 8 to constantly match up to the same numbers. A habit I get into, which helps a lot with the plus rule, is when I place a card down, I normally just add the numbers together for each side even when not playing the plus rule. It's helpful to get used to spotting situations where you might be able to lay down a trap for your opponent to give you a big plus play and combo into a strong scoreline. Finally, just a few different tips on how to play the game. So firstly, with just covering your angles, a deck that has variety and strength is usually better. Stacking your deck with cards strong in a single direction makes it easier for your opponents to play around you, or picking a deck with more angles and strength will mean better adaptability. Typically, this will mean having one card to cover each corner of the board, with another one being your own personal preference. Using your time is a very important factor in the game. So at this point, just from playing Triple Triad for over 20 years in the normal Final Fantasy VIII game, there are certain habits built in. In the original format, due to the opponent being AI, there was no time limit, so you could endlessly think multiple turns ahead and try to plan what the opponent might do. Adapting to trying to do this within a 90-second time limit over the course of a game can be tricky, but if you are able to do so, it helps with setting plays in motion to catch your opponent out. Using the open tournaments in-game is also a great way to learn how to play. In the game, every 2 real hours there is an open tournament held in the Gold Saucer. You can sign up to it for free, and the games are played using the draft system, so you can try out cards you do not have in your collection yet. On top of this, the rules do change for them, and you can earn a good amount of Moogle points to play more outside of the tournament. As well as this, you do earn card packs to hopefully give you a better collection to pick from. And finally, always play the bi-weekly tournaments. Much like the open tournaments, the bi-weekly tournaments are a great way to learn to play. You can actually play all 20 of your games against AI bots if you want, and the more points you earn will lead towards winning more packs come the tournament's end. The cards in these packs can be extremely good, with a few of them even being used by people with complete collections. So that's it for this overview of the Triple Triad game in Final Fantasy XIV. I most likely will be making a similar video just outlining specifics with the same plus rule with all of the intricacies with it to help explain it a bit better, as I know they are the rules that tend to be the trickiest to learn and master in the Triple Triad game. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.